Whitehouse Woods. 3 weeks ago, it was mine and my husband's 7-year anniversary. We wanted to find somewhere in the rural parts of England, a quiet getaway. After hours of scrolling for the perfect place to stay, I finally found somewhere. It was a large Victorian-style house, had 4 floors including the loft and a basement. It was a 40-minute drive from the nearest town, and had a beautiful outdoor space which was surrounded by woods. This was exactly what we wanted. We arrived late afternoon on Friday, at about 4:30 p.m. Ideally, we wanted to get there earlier so we would have the whole weekend including Friday, however it was rather confusing trying to find the exact location. It was about mid-November, so it was already starting to get dark. We unpacked the car, went inside and checked the house out. It was beautiful, just like the pictures online. Everything was going fine. We lit the fire, had dinner and decided to go up to bed as we were shattered from the long drive and wanted to be up early to properly explore. It was 2:47 a.m. and I had awoken to what sounded like a bell ringing. I woke my husband up to see if he could hear it too. Coincidentally, it had stopped by the time he had come around. He got up and went downstairs with a torch to check if there was anything, or anything outside. There was nothing, no bells in sight either. My husband instantly fell back asleep, but I felt on edge. I was wide awake. I decided to look up the house we were staying in. After about 8 minutes of scrolling, I found a post of a family who had stayed here prior to us, about 4 years ago. On this post was a link. This link led me to a picture of a newspaper report. My stomach dropped when I saw this. It was a black and white photo of this exact house, late 1800s, and it was titled "Family of 6 Murdered in Whitehouse Woods." I sat up in bed, heart racing. Could it have been just a sad state of affairs and they were unfortunately here when a killer was on the loose, or was it something sinister that happened by someone/something who knows this house? I put my phone away and decided to sleep on it. Next morning I was awoken by my husband grunting loudly. I asked him what's the matter and he said he had gone downstairs to make a coffee and noticed the back door was unlocked and slightly ajar. I asked if anything looked moved or stolen. He said no. Now I was starting to freak out. I still didn't tell him what I found last night on my phone. I feel he would tell me. I'm worrying for nothing. We wanted to take a walk around the area, so we set off at about 12 p.m. It was a clear day with some to none clouds. It was as if there was an apocalypse going on. We didn't see anyone or any vehicles. But then again, we are in a rural area in the middle of nowhere. We got back at 4 p.m. and decided to have an early dinner as we wanted to set back home tomorrow morning. It hit 10 p.m. and this is where things started getting weird. We were sitting in the living room, fire on, watching a film, and we hear rustling outside. My husband goes to look out the window, sees nothing. I go to make sure the doors are locked. As we are walking back to the sofa, we hear a knock on the door. My stomach drops. I think to myself, it's around 10 p.m. It isn't too weird to have someone knock at this time, but we are in the middle of absolutely nowhere and the nearest town is about a 40-minute drive. I stay sat down, but my husband walks up to the door. He opens it and there's a distressed-looking woman. She was in her about late 40s, I would say. She is out of breath, frantic and flapping her hands around. She goes on to explain how she's lost. She was walking her dog in the local woods when suddenly she saw a tall black figure dressed in all black standing behind a tree, peering round to stare at her. So she started running and saw the light from here, so came up and knocked to see if anyone was in. We invited her to come in so she was safe. Husband double-checked all the doors were locked and I shut all the curtains. I made her a tea and showed her to the spare bedroom where she then went to lay down. We finished our film and went up to bed. It's 12:30 a.m. now. As I am brushing my teeth, I look out the window to see the person she had described. They were standing there looking straight up at me, stone cold as if they were a statue. Tall, long legs with a black trench coat on. I couldn't tell if it was a man or woman, but by the build I guessed it was a man. I kept my eyes on the figure as I didn't want to look away, and they were gone. I called for my husband and told him to not come into view of the window, but explained what I can see. He insisted he went out there to ask what is going on, so he did, and I stayed with my eyes on the figure. I watched as my husband slowly walked up to the man. Suddenly, the figure quickly turned around and started running on all fours into the woods. At this point I was totally freaked out. My husband came back in and we woke the woman up and decided to leave now. As we frantically get our things and pack the car, I hear the bell sound again. I turn around and there is 3 tall, stone-cold, long figures standing about 10 yards in front of the entrance of the woods. They are staring directly at us. We panic, jump into the car, and as we do so they start sprinting towards us with what looked like chainsaws. I have never felt such fear in my life, and to this day, I still don't know what would have happened if we didn't make it out in time. I wrote an email to the owner of the Whitehouse Woods house, explains what had happened. The email was not found, and when I searched the house up nothing came up. This is a mystery to me that I will continue to think about. I never told my husband about what I saw on my phone that night. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to the woman, we dropped her off where she lived, which was the local town to the Whitehouse Woods.